Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so we live in a completely unprecedented time. We possess literally godlike technological power, right? But we're operating with, well, kind of an adolescent level of wisdom. I mean, think about it. We can sequence genomes, we can split the atom, but we're seriously struggling to protect the exact planet that actually sustains us.
And that brings us to the ultimate, really the existential question of our time. Can a species that is completely capable of self-annihilation actually learn to self-govern? Because right now we're working with Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and technology that rivals the gods. That gap, the one between what we can do and what we should do, it's widening fast. And honestly, it challenges our very ability to survive our own inventions.
To really anchor this existential dread, and yeah, it's a bit dreadful, we can look back at a brilliant warning from Carl Sagan. He pointed out years ago that we've arranged a global society based entirely on powerful science and technology, but hardly anyone truly understands that science and technology. He called it a combustible mixture. And it's not just about scientific illiteracy, it's much deeper. It's about our failure to integrate power with reverence and capability with deep, genuine care.
So we actually have a name for this root cause. We call it the metacrisis. Basically, it's the crisis beneath all the other crises we hear about every day, whether that's climate change or global conflicts. It is that catastrophic gap between our rapidly compounding tech capabilities and our severely lagging moral and spiritual maturity.
Now, you might hear a pretty common biological excuse for all our destructive behavior. People say, well, humans are just the ultimate apex predators. We're naturally competing for survival in a dog-eat-dog world. But we really need to challenge that cynical worldview. Are we actually apex predators playing by the rules of nature, or are we playing a completely different game entirely?
Let's think about a real apex predator. Take an orca. It catches one fish at a time, and honestly, it misses a lot of the time. It's completely bound by the physical limits of biology. Now look at us humans. We use industrialized, mile-long drift nets to scoop up 100,000 fish in one go. We can slash and burn an acre of forest in literally a second. Guys, that is not predatory behavior. That is divine power. But because we're wielding it without divine wisdom, we aren't apex predators. We are basically acting as bad gods.
So let's look at the difference between intelligence versus true wisdom.
Intelligence is essentially our capacity to achieve goals through information processing. It's always asking, how do I maximize the specific metric? Wisdom, on the flip side, is the capacity to figure out which goals are actually worth pursuing in the first place. Wisdom asks, wait, what breaks if I optimize this one thing way too hard? Basically, intelligence optimizes a singular goal, while wisdom discerns the impact of that goal on the whole interconnected system.
So how did our modern world manage to fracture our sense of direction so badly? Well, historically, civilizations were guided by this transcendent triad: truth, beauty, and goodness. But today, we've completely fragmented them. Think about it. Truth has been reduced to just data. Beauty has been totally hollowed out into mere entertainment and quick stimulation. And goodness? That's been demoted to just private opinion. It's a stark realization. We've essentially dismantled the cultural compass that used to guide humanity. It leaves us with extraordinary capability, sure, but also extraordinary incoherence.
Which brings us to a really powerful metaphor, the cancer cell analogy.
Try to wrap your head around this massive number, 70 to 90 trillion. That is roughly the number of healthy cells currently working away inside your body right now. I mean, for you to just sit there, exist, breathe, and watch this explainer, trillions of individual cells have to constantly synergize and coordinate. They aren't just out there doing their own thing. They communicate, they cooperate, and together they form this incredible, living, breathing macro system.
But what exactly happens when that beautiful synergy breaks down? Well, first, a cell mutates. Second, it completely stops communicating and just abandons its synergy with all the cells around it. Third, it starts acting purely out of short-term self-interest, consuming resources, replicating as fast as possible. And fourth, here's the tragic irony. By acting only for itself, it ultimately kills the host. It destroys the very macro system it relies on to survive, and by doing that, it obviously kills itself too.
Now, this analogy maps perfectly onto us. When humans just extract endlessly from the planet, or when we exploit each other for short-term gain while completely ignoring the health of the broader ecosystem, we are essentially becoming the cancer cells of the Earth. If we consume blindly without synergizing with our environment, we are literally writing our own end.
To fix this, we have to look at integrating the heart, the mind, and the will.
Because to actually survive and thrive, we urgently need a civilizational upgrade. And that requires personal development across 3 core pillars, what we can call the whole human triad: heart, mind, and will. Listen, mastering these 3, it's no longer just some nice, feel-good self-help goal. It's an absolute civilizational survival requirement.
So let's break these down. First up, the heart. Now, we really need to redefine this because it is absolutely not about weak sentimentality. The heart is actually your organ of perception that registers value. A highly developed human is not some emotionless robot. Even your negative emotions, like anger or fear, they're actually rooted in a deep love and care for something you want to protect. Your heart is basically your compass for what truly matters in the world.
Next, we have the mind. The mind has to be trained to go way beyond our simple cognitive biases. It has to clearly distinguish the signal from the massive amount of noise in our chaotic world. But even more importantly, the mind must practice deliberate reasoning to directly perceive the true interdependence of all things. It's about being able to hold the vast complexity of reality in your head without getting totally overwhelmed or just shutting down completely. And finally, the will. You know, you can have all the deep empathy of the heart and crystal clear clarity of the mind, but without the will, your wisdom remains completely theoretical. The will is the bridge between your inner understanding and your outer expression. It is your capacity to actually transform your insights into purposeful, aligned action, especially when you are under intense pressure.
This all leads to our final major concept: becoming a sovereign human.
I really want to reframe the word sovereignty for you here, because a lot of times we think of it as building walls, right? Being completely independent, not needing anybody else. But true sovereignty is actually the capacity for self-authored choice in service of the whole. Sure, it's freedom from manipulation, but it is also freedom for meaningful participation in the ecosystem. It's literally the complete opposite of just atomized, lonely isolation.
If we jump back to our cell analogy for a second, this maps perfectly onto how a sovereign human has to act to actually help heal our civilization. Your duties are basically threefold. Number 1, maintain your own individual psychological health. You have to be a healthy cell first. Number 2, synergize with your community. Work with the cells around you. And number 3, act as an immune function for the world. When you see harm happening, you use your integrated heart, mind, and will to step up and correct it.
There's this incredibly profound, almost poetic truth from the Zen master Dogen that fits perfectly here. He said, "To study the self is to forget the self, and to forget the self is to be enlightened by all things." Wow, I just love how that brilliantly solidifies the idea that when we look deeply inward at our own motives, it inevitably connects us outward. It naturally leads to profound care for the planet and literally everything on it.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The metacrisis, it's real. The stakes are entirely existential, and our technology is only getting more and more powerful. We simply cannot sit around waiting for our institutions to suddenly magically become wise. It requires us, as individuals, to upgrade our own architecture of wisdom. So, the question I want to leave you with today is this. Will you use your agency to integrate your heart, mind, and will? Will you become an immune cell for our civilization, or are you going to be just another apex predator? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.